So one day, this game was randomly announced to be in development, and then it got revealed a month later, and then a few months after that, it releases, with 0 reviews and most of the world being unaware that it even came out. So what was going on with this? Were they hiding some atrocity of a game from us that we should never, ever touch? No. Dragon Quest Monsters Dark Prince is one of those Square Enix games, the really good ones, that just don't get any piece of the marketing budget. Do reviews count as marketing budget? I don't know, but there weren't any. The Dark Prince truly is a gem of the Switch, and it's something that I think will gain significant popularity after the system's life. Maybe not now, but in a few years' time this will be seen as a true hidden gem. Dragon Quest Monsters as a series essentially predates Pokemon, with its DNA debuting in 1992's Dragon Quest V, one of the greatest games ever made. For the bulk of that game, you are alone in a solo party, but you can recruit any monster you've battled to be a permanent party member, essentially doing Pokemon 4 years before Pokemon, but with a human battling alongside the monsters. The mechanic then became its own series in 1998 on the Game Boy Color, and it's been going strong ever since in Japan. For the last 13 years, Dragon Quest Monsters games have not released overseas, but we have broken the curse. We finally made it! Interestingly, The Dark Prince isn't really a spin-off. There's very little stopping this from being a mainline game. It's more of a companion game to Dragon Quest IV. It does tell its own story, so don't worry about being lost if you've never played it, but man, it enhances Dragon Quest IV. It's really cool seeing the original cast from a different perspective, both in full 3D and voice acted. And it's especially cool getting a little bit more Zenithian lore, which has barely been touched since this era of Dragon Quest. You play as Pizarro, a big antagonist of Dragon Quest IV, and while he looks all dark and brooding, you're still doing a lot of the same light-hearted stuff of most Dragon Quests, only you're aiding monsters rather than humans. The context is darker, but the themes are still mostly very light and jolly. Speaking of light and jolly, Pizarro wants to kill his father, who's the leader of all monsters, and take his place on the throne. However, when trying to attack him, his father curses Pizarro with never being able to harm a monster, and this leads to wrangling others to fight in your place until you're strong enough to finally face your dad. It's a very cool way of taking an existing premise, something that existed way before Dragon Quest Monsters, and making it into a Dragon Quest Monsters game. Honestly, Pizarro feels like quite a different character, and it recontextualizes a lot of Dragon Quest IV, but I ended up really enjoying where the story went, both as a fan of the original game and as its own thing. It does take a while for anything important to really happen, but the payoffs are fantastic. And being a silent protagonist really works wonders, as while you're going around the world and helping others, it can be easy to lose track that Pizarro wants to start a war and kill all humans. There's some really great scenes where characters who saw good in him are just shocked by his motivations, giving the silent demeanor. You're never quite sure what he's thinking. He always looks like he wants to kill someone, but there's all this whimsical stuff going on, so how could he? How could he? As an overall game, there's really not much stopping The Dark Prince from being a mainline Dragon Quest game. All the DNA is here. Turn-based battles with 4 party members, dungeons, bosses, finding mini-medals, the light-hearted tone with melancholy moments. I know with any monster collecting game there's always going to be a ton of Pokemon comparisons, but this is really another Dragon Quest. It's not Pokemon at all. But there are compromises. This game is much smaller in scope. Not to say it's short, in fact it can be quite a bit longer than the 16-bit Dragon Quest RPGs, but the world isn't interconnected with an overworld and towns. It instead has a bunch of different sandboxes that your magic tower can teleport between. This isn't necessarily bad. The Dark Prince starts off a little slow, but this form of progression leads to really snappy pacing, and the sheer monster variety had me super excited every single time a new area unlocked. I just wanted to see every single creature, and man, that's where the game shines. Dragon Quest has always had incredible creatures created by the legendary Akira Toriyama, and in this game there's over 500 of them, both old and new. Look at this one. His name is Sugar Baddie. Sugar Baddie. That's really good. Every single time I came to a new area, I just jumped straight into another creature encounter. I was constantly finding old favorites and just being enamored by the brand new ones, and the variety just doesn't stop. Dark Prince has a really cool system where every 15 to 20 minutes, the seasons shift in real time, as in there's no loading, it just sort of turns on the fly. This completely changes the color scheme of areas and opens up new paths. For instance, if there's a body of water that you can't travel in spring, it will freeze in the winter, and sometimes there's caves or treasure chests or just optional areas with brand new monsters. But monsters also change with the season, and they change with the weather too. There's just so many variables. Like it could be raining lava in the volcano area, or raining sprinkles in the bakery area, and that, on top of the seasons, affects what monsters appear. It's very unlikely you're going to see every variable on your first visit, so it gives so much incentive to revisit older areas just to see what other monsters you may have missed. But then you can take any two monsters and fuse them Shin Megami Tensei style into another completely new monster, often ones you won't find in the field until way later in the game, if ever. This had me constantly switching up my party. Like in any Pokemon game, I always keep my starter in my party. I often keep the first bird I encounter in my party. But I was replacing my entire lineup with every area in Dark Prince. And the beauty of this is if you become attached to a certain monster, you can carry their traits into a new monster through the synthesizing. Like if there's certain moves you're attached to, you can keep them for the next monster. So in a sense, the traits of each monster you've synthesized and the history of your party do live on in the future. Like this thing here, it's been synthesized up the wazoo, but it has completely different traits to any wild creature out there because it has components of other monsters. You don't keep your party the same, but their growth lives on. I spend so much time barely advancing the story and just roaming around collecting monsters, fusing them, raising them up, fusing them again. It is a beautiful cycle, and if every other part of the game just crumbled, it would still hold up because this is so worth your time. But thankfully, other parts are good too. But man, this is fantastic. When it comes to the combat itself, I was a little underwhelmed at first. You can give direct commands like almost any other turn-based RPG and be fully in control, but it's not the first option. It actually emphasizes relying on battle tactics, which are also in other Dragon Quest games but far less emphasized. So instead of selecting a specific command, you instead suggest a genre of attack, like healing or supporting, or just going all out with a bunch of damage. It took a little bit for me to accept this priority, but after a while, it made sense. I would take full control when it came to the more involved boss battles, but for the smaller encounters where in most games I just mashed the attack button anyway, I was pretty happy for the game to just flow. Relying on tactics keeps everything going so quickly, even faster when you turn up the battle speed. And the strategy is still there when it comes to preserving your magic or deciding which character should be a healer, and so on. If you really don't jive with this, then of course the main commands are still there, but they're buried a little bit away, so if you really want to play the entire game like that, the inputs do start to build up. You can of course scout any monster you encounter and try and get them to join your party, and while you can do this at any time, you've got to be very lucky if it's an area you've just visited. If you've taken down the area boss, then it becomes way easier to get these monsters, but it also rests on the intimidation of your party, their level, if you've weakened the enemy or you've given them food, but still, it feels really good to get a monster when doing none of that. Just waltzing in with a really low chance of getting them and somehow snagging it. Great feeling. Sometimes monsters even join you after a battle Dragon Quest V style, although that's very rare, but still, it's cool when it happens. In areas, there is a standard between Dragon Quest Monsters The Dark Prince and a mainline game, but when you're just in the moment, it feels right. It feels like a core Dragon Quest. The dungeons can be elaborate, the sounds have that homely Dragon Quest feel, and if you like the old NES and Super Nintendo soundtracks, I have good news for you because they're here too, exactly as you remember them. In fact, I'm not sure The Dark Prince has a single original composition, it's just the same MIDI tracks that we've heard for years and years, and other spin-offs like Builders have these exact songs as well. It at least makes a little bit of sense given this is a Dragon Quest IV game, but the bar to exceed my soundtrack expectations was very low, and it stumbled and fell to the ground before even attempting to jump over it. That's not to say the tracks are bad, but like at least rearrange them or something. In fact, the presentation as a whole is just all over the place. I think the game can actually look quite nice. It kind of meets that sort of PlayStation 2 Dragon Quest VIII style, but in HD. Although HD's in big quotation marks in handheld mode because this isn't exactly clean. And look, I am fine with lower budget games. In fact, I embrace them. I want more games to kind of be in this style. The problem is, it looks like this while running like this. Sometimes it's smooth and quite pleasant, and then you enter a new area and you go, oh, you okay there, bud? And then some areas just have a constant jitter to them. This isn't going away no matter where you turn the camera. And this is all in addition to constant pop-in and low frame rate enemies in the distance. If you were hoping this would be the monster collecting game to stick it to Pokemon technically, it isn't. And while the general area variety is very good, they get reused a bunch. There's basically a lower, a middle, and a higher end version of every area. They are different, some of them even drastically so, but there isn't a consistent standard. Like this area and this area are different. I think you can accept that. This area and this area are different. Can you accept that? They look pretty similar to me. This stuff does of course bug me, but the more I played, the more it went to the back of my mind because the core game is just so damn fun. More than any other monster collecting game, I want to see everything. There's some truly inspired original creature designs in this game that I hope reappear in Dragon Quest XII. The Dark Prince is a lot of things. It's one of the best monster collecting games on the Switch, it's a love letter to Dragon Quest IV, it's an excellent follow-on point for those who have played Dragon Quest XI and want another modern 3D game, and it puts the pure essence of its addictive flow at the forefront ahead of anything else. But it's also held together by twigs. And the DLC is stupid. It really isn't much of a spin-off. This is the newest Dragon Quest, and I hope more people give it some recognition. It's not perfect and the scope is limited, but it does so many cool things while just being utterly delightful. The Dark Prince makes Dragon Quest IV even better, but it doesn't hide behind it. It forms its own legacy in one of the most ambitious and high-energy offshoots Dragon Quest has ever done. By all means and purposes, this is another mainline Dragon Quest game, and something you really shouldn't let you pass you by. I got great vibes from Dragon Quest Monsters: The Dark Prince. I get that some people may not be able to look past the technical side, and that is perfectly cool, it makes sense. But there's just too great of a game in here for that to diminish my joy. It's not flawless, but its personality is contagious. When I wasn't playing it, I was thinking about playing it. It's not a Pokemon killer, but, and don't tell anyone I said this, I don't think it was ever trying to be. Monster collecting is not just a genre ran by Pikachu, it can be so much more, and I think this is great alongside Pokemon, rather than being a replacement or its murderer. Enjoy things by their own merits, and give this game a chance. Please.